Let's take a look at the 2021 NBA draft. We're going to redraft it. We'll see how it goes. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and my children need wine. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms. So let's talk about this 2021 NBA draft class. Of course, it is World Oceans Day. So first of all, in the comments, shout out your favorite ocean, your Pacific guy. Indian Ocean, maybe a little bit overlooked. Atlantic Ocean, it feels like a dud. What's your favorite ocean? Not to be confused with seas or lakes, rivers. We're talking oceans only. Those are ones, they're too small. Who cares? No one cares about those small bodies of water. What we're talking about, though, is the 2021 NBA draft. And a redraft is always a tough thing. How do you judge it? Do you go back in time and look at the teams that were picking in those spots and go, what about the need of what that team needed? Because that's a hard thing to do, because obviously every pick that gets made cascades down to the picks after that, to free agent decisions, and then they'll go, well, the team looks like this, and imagine they had to pick that guy then. But if they had to pick that guy then, maybe the other decisions they made following it wouldn't have allowed them to be in the position to pick that guy. I know that's very convoluted, but I think that makes more sense. So what I'm doing, I'm basically just looking at the players that I think would be the best in that spot based on the player, without focusing too heavily on the individual team and who was on that squad, all that sort of stuff. I'm still taking age into consideration, because there are certain players in this class that may not have gotten drafted who are like still 5 years older than other guys. So while they may have been better in these first 3 years, there are players who are worse than them that haven't even reached the age of some of these guys that they were when they didn't get drafted at the time. And again, I know that's confusing, but we'll get into that as we go through this and talk about those specific examples. Let's take a look at the beginning of this draft. In the beginning, we'll go through that and take a look. Yeah, who are we going to start? Well, we'll start at pick 1. Why wouldn't we start at pick number 1? Because pick number 1 was, of course, Cade Cunningham in the 2021 NBA draft. It was tough for me as to which guy I was going to go for here at pick number 1. In the end, I just decided to stick with Cade Cunningham. We had some iffy play at times from Cade over the course of his first 4 seasons. I've got some other things here, which you're not going to see on the screen, but I'll mention as we go, where I've summed up their estimated wins over the first 4 seasons, thanks to dunks and threes, and see where they rank there. Also, what their Durant fantasy ranking was for this season. Cade was the best fantasy player out of this draft class this season, but he was only 7th in total estimated wins over the course of the 4 years combined. This season, he was number 1, but over the 4 seasons, he was number 7. I still think that having a 6'6", 6'7" lead guard who shoots, passes, rebounds, defends pretty well is the key sort of a player that leads you to titles. As good as Evan Mobley is, and I love Evan Mobley, and I would have had him number 2 in this draft heading into it, I'm still going to just going to edge him with Cade just a little bit. So Cade was number 1. I'm taking Cade at number 1. Done, dusted. Pick number 2, of course, in real life, the Houston Rockets took Jalen Green. Under no circumstances will Jollibee Jalen be selected in this spot. It is easily going to be Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley was my pick at number 2 in that draft then. He remains my pick at number 2, and the Rockets would be taking Evan Mobley in this redraft. Evan Mobley ranks number 2, actually, overall in estimated wins out of this draft class. Interestingly, he was only the 6th ranked fantasy player for this season out of this draft class, which, again, he was great. But this is a class that 4 years in their 4th season, they produced some unbelievably high-level fantasy players. And you might say, that's how is Evan Mobley not ranked higher than that for fantasy? Well, he was great, but there was so many other guys who were great in this draft class also. So he's right in that mix with these guys for this upcoming season. or this, not this upcoming season, the season that just passed. So we've got Mobley at 2. At number 3, this is where we go a little bit more off the board. Obviously, in real life, Evan Mobley was picked at number 3, going to Cleveland. I'm going to reach all the way outside the lottery. I'm going to take the delicate dancer Alperen Şengün, going to the Cleveland Cavaliers at number 3. Now, I could have easily taken probably 3 or 4 guys in this position. Şengün has his defensive liabilities. Obviously, he is an all-star, was an all-star this season. He was the Rockets' best player as they made their way into the 2 seed in the Western Conference. There are concerns at times with his game, but I do think that Şengün, who I believe I had him at 6 in this draft class, so I'm going to bump him up a little bit from there and also bump him up from his real-life slot up to number 3. I also was debating this one because this was a pretty close sort of tiering of a group of players. I did not like when the Raptors picked Scottie Barnes at number 4. In real life, people know that. Of course, I'm a certified hater of all things Canadian and all things Scottie Barnes. It goes without saying. Just purely existing fuels my hatred. But I'm not alone. Everyone feels that, surely, to some degree. Even Canadians feel that to some degree. So I didn't like Barnes going at pick number 4. I'm picking Barnes at pick number 4. There'll be somebody out there, shout out to you, I know you're there, that's got, Barnes has got to be pick number 2. You got to take, I'd pick Barnes number 1. Cool, that's good for you. I won't. I'll take him at number 4. He's definitely better than I thought he was. I still think that maybe not as much this season. I still think that he is overrated in certain areas. I do worry about the offensive stuff with him. I think the defense gets overstated at times, and I'm a little concerned about the shot. But I'm putting Barnes at number 4 pretty comfortably. At number 4, if I take a look at the estimated wins over the course of their career so far, Barnes is actually at number 3. Şengün is at number 4. So yeah, I've got Barnesy coming in there at number 4 in this draft. And to round out my top 5, it is a player. Well, the Magic had this pick in real life. They picked Jalen Suggs. I'm going to give them another player they took in this draft. I'm going to take Franz Wagner at number 5. Wagner is actually the leading player for estimated wins in this draft class over his first 4 seasons. His shot has waxed and waned. He was awesome to start this season when Paolo Banchero was out. He did tail off after that oblique strain. Defensively, I think he's pretty solid. He's not a number 1 offensive option. He's a number 2. He's a good defender. I want a little bit more reliability in his shot, but look at that top 5. Cade, Mobley, Şengün, Barnes, and Wagner. And I think you're pretty happy with that overall as a grouping. Let's go through to the next group of players. At number 6, originally, it was the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they took Josh Giddey. I'm not taking Josh Giddey at number 6. In this spot, at number 6, I am going to be selecting the Atlanta Hawks' Jalen Johnson. I think Johnson is a all-star level talent at this point. He has clearly morphed into the second best player on the Atlanta Hawks. He had a huge season this last season. He didn't do much in his first 2 years. That's why he is 17th in estimated wins out of this draft class group, or out of these guys that I'm going to choose, not out of everyone in the group, out of the 30 players I'm going to pick for the first round. But I believe having Jalen Johnson there at pick number 6, going to the Oklahoma City Thunder, would be the correct way to do it. Maybe not. No, that's what I believe. So I'm putting Jalen at number 6. At number 7, that was the Golden State Warriors and their selection. So we're obviously not going to be doubling down and taking John Kuminga in that position. We are going to go to Jalen Suggs, who was the guy that I thought Toronto should have picked at number 4. In the end, he struggled early on. He was excellent in year 3. I thought he was excellent in year 4. And when he got injured, that really doomed the Magic. Is he their best player? No. Is he their most important player? Yes. Yeah, he is. And that leads to an interesting discussion, I guess, because we can look at Franz having the most estimated wins out of this class. We can look at Banchero as an all-star player. But when those guys are out, they treaded water, thanks to Suggs. When Suggs went out, they were bad. And some of his reckless style of play leads to some of this injury, of course, and this knee injury was a persistent thing that lasted a long time. I mean, he never came back, clearly, and hopefully the surgery clears that up. But Suggs' ability to be a guy that just makes things better and just makes the team better is something that I love. He improved his shooting, he's a tenacious defender, and when he is out there, the team is better. And I would think that when you are drafting players, you're not drafting who's going to score the most players one-on-one out in the playground. You're picking someone that's going to help you in NBA games. So I took Jalen Suggs there at number 7. At number 8, this was the Magic's second pick. They did select Franz Wagner in that position, but I've already taken Franz Wagner. I've already taken Jalen Suggs, their two selections. So I'm going to end up here with Kenneth Murphy III. Trey Murphy was selected, was at pick 17 in the real draft. He is actually 8th overall in estimated wins in this draft class. He had a breakout fantasy season. His value for the coming years is going to depend a little bit on the positioning of other guys and where they are in terms of the Pelicans and their rotation. But Trey has established himself as a scalable option who can defend well at times and not as well this season. Shoots unbelievably, but can do stuff off the dribble also. He is going to be a top 50 fantasy player for a long period of time. He's a little bit older than some of these other guys. For example, like Şengün hasn't turned 23 yet, whereas Murphy just turned 25. So we're talking a couple of years difference between those guys. At number 9 in the real draft, it was the Kings selecting really what was not a great pick at the time, a pick that I didn't like at the time and has turned out to be not a good pick very clearly in hindsight. They chose Davion Mitchell. This is where I'm going to pick Josh Giddey, who went number 6 to the Oklahoma City Thunder. I tossed and turned over this one because Giddey can obviously put up numbers, but we saw when things get more important, like for the Thunder, he becomes not useful and unplayable at times. And we saw that struggle with the Bulls. And then we saw him get absolutely unleashed at the second half of the season, and then they moved into the playing game, and he was not very good in that one either. But when we look at the other players around this area, and this is that debate that I was talking about earlier regarding age, because I believe, again, you could have this argument however you want, that if you're just talking about a player right now, that Austin Reaves provides more value than Josh Giddey right now. That if you're picking a player to play right now, Josh Giddey is not as good as Austin Reaves at playing NBA basketball right now. You can argue that if you want. That's okay, whatever. And I know you'll tell me triple doubles and all this. I think that Austin Reaves right now is a better player. But he's 5 years older. So the fact that we look at where Giddey is, who hasn't even turned 23 yet, whereas Reaves is 27, so 4.5 years difference. So the age that Reaves was when the NBA draft was on, Giddey is not even that old yet. So that to me is that, and that's why when we talk NBA draft, we do focus on the ages of guys, because that's all well and good to say that Reaves has been better over this time period and probably contributes more right now. Marginal. But Giddey's not even that age that Reaves was before he played his first NBA game. And to me that is important. That does make a difference. And that's why I'm going to take Giddey at number 9 to the Sacramento Kings. And of course, that means at number 10, which was, again, a pretty bad pick, Zaire Williams went to the Memphis Grizzlies after they traded up into this selection, which was the Pelicans pick. I'm going to take Austin Reaves with that selection. I just talked about Reaves in that little spiel about Giddey, so I think you understand where we're at with that. Reaves has shown he's got the 5th most estimated wins out of this grouping of players. He was a fantasy stud. His ability to scale up and scale back, play point guard, play off ball, shoot, draw free throws. Defensively, not very good, obviously, but his improvement has been sensational, and he's an undrafted player that I'm going to take there at pick number 10. We've got the other 20 picks in this draft to get to. Before we do that, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Game 1 of the NBA Finals is in the books. The Thunder, they lose at home to the Pacers. Tyrese Haliburton with his 20 millionth game-winning shot as the Pacers pull off another comeback. And right now, there are so many interesting things and unbelievable things happening in the playoffs. So there's never been a better time for you to get in on that action with FanDuel. It makes it easier to stay in the game, whether it is before tip-off or live during the game. You can get your player props, you can do your same-game parlays. You've got more ways than ever to play smart and to win big. You can look at which players are showing up in the biggest moments, like Tyrese Haliburton, or any of the Pacers, really, Andrew Nembhard. There's always somebody who seems to step up, and you can track those trends to see how that can impact you and your betting decisions. You can also get a $200 bonus bet if you happen to win your first $5 bet. So, if you are new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, we're here now talking about this NBA draft redraft. We've done the top 10 picks. Let's move across now to look at the next grouping, the next 5 picks, starting at pick number 11. This was a second round guy who what a rough run. Pick number 9, Davion Mitchell. Pick number 10, Zaire Williams. Pick number 11, the librarian, James Bouknight, who is obviously out of the league. I'll give you a spoiler. I'm not picking James Bouknight in the first round of this redraft. That's not going to happen. he was a prospect that I hated. I did not like him at all. I believe I had him either like 18 or in the 20s somewhere. That one worked out for me, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to take Herb Jones with this selection. Jones, again, a second-round pick who maybe doesn't have much scalability offensively, but we are getting to this stage where, like, Herb Jones is a starter. Herb Jones is an all-defensive level player. Herb Jones is a player who improved his shot to a significant amount and is a starter on majority teams in the NBA, or at least a 25 to 28-minute rotation piece. And a guy, much like when talking about Jalen Suggs, like, you put him out there and, like, that just usually leads to good results. That's usually how it goes, and I like that sort of a player in comparison to whatever it is that you would get if you chucked James Bouknight out there. He's 6th in total estimated wins over the course of his career so far, Herb, and I'm picking him here at number 11. You might say this is a little bit far for Jalen Green to slide, and I get that. I understand why you would say that. Jalen Green went number 2. He went number 2 for a reason. The reason was wrong, but he went number 2 for a reason. I'm putting him at 12, because what has he done? He's been given huge opportunities. He's been put into a role with big usage. He's had players catered around him at times. He hasn't shown tremendous growth, really, at all, I don't think, through most of his career. And I'll get to this stage where I'm looking at him and I go, is this a player, Jalen Green, that actually leads to wins? Does he? I don't know that he does. He's 11th in estimated wins total for this grouping of players, for this draft class. And he's played, like, basically every game. And that's one of those archetypal things where we talk about NBA drafts where I go, like, this is a guy that can score, but all right, what else? Are you doing it efficiently? Are you defending? Are you passing? Are you helping a team win? Or are you just doing highlight reel plays? So, yeah, like, I think when we're evaluating the draft, you guys have a look at this and think about it. Like, where would you put Jalen Green ahead of Herb Jones? I get it. Would you put him ahead of Josh Giddey? I get it. Austin Reaves, I also understand. Like, there's an age factor there. But Green, just for the most part of his career, has been bad. I think that is pretty self-explanatory. And that's why I'm putting him there. And now we start to get weird. Oh, by the way, the 12th pick in the draft, another pick which I hated, Josh Primo. Trenchcoat legend. Out of the NBA. Cut by the Spurs, signed by the Clippers, cut by the Clippers, and now he's free to get his wang out in parks around the country, I guess. So, see you later, Josh Primo. Pick number 13 was another pick that I did not like at this point. I hated it. This was a draft where I feel like I nailed a lot of these guys that I didn't like in this draft. I'm not going to always be. Obviously, I was wrong on Scott Barnes. But I hated the Indiana Pacers selecting Chris Duarte at number 13. To be honest and upfront with you, I didn't like this player that I'm going to pick at number 13, which is Quentin Grimes. I didn't really like the stuff that I saw from him coming out of Auburn. I'm not sure about this guy as a player. But obviously, we saw a breakout. Yeah, there were circumstantial things that led to some of the numbers that Quentin Grimes put up this season. But I've been a Grimes fan basically since I started to see him play in the NBA. I didn't like him as a prospect, but I did like him once he entered the NBA. I was worried about his knees and where that was going because that year 3 was a little troublesome. But even the limited minutes for him, he's 12th in total wins out of this draft class, one spot behind Jalen Green. And I wouldn't say that Grimes has had a huge opportunity necessarily. So he comes in at number 13, which was the Indiana Pacers pick. At number 14, a second-round pick, I think number 55 overall, I'm going to go with Aaron Wiggins. This was Moses Moody in the real draft at pick number 14 for the Golden State Warriors. And I do think that Moody is a solid player and probably could have shown a little bit more had he been given more opportunities. And I liked him more than, say, Jonathan Kuminga at the time. And I'm still debating where I am with that. I do obviously have Kuminga, if you can see on the screen. I've got Kuminga ahead of Moody. But I'm not going to pick Moody here. I'm going to take Wiggins again. We're talking, it's like the Herb Jonesy sort of scenario, the Quentin Grimes. Is this guy a star? No. Is he a guy that worked on his shooting to become a scalable, defensive, shooting 3-and-D player? Yeah. Aaron Wiggins has been unbelievably good over this time frame as a second-round pick, so I'm going to take him at 14 in what was the Warriors' second pick. The real-life pick at number 15 was Corey Kispert for the Washington Wizards, another pick which I was very much against. An older prospect who I thought had no upside. Kispert didn't start for the Wizards at all this season on a team this bad. He is a bench player who shoots sort of good. What a profile. And this is where I'm going to put John Kuminga. Now, is John Kuminga one of the lowest field players in the entire NBA? Yeah, he is. Like, he's not good. He's a poor defender. He doesn't pass. He is Jalen Green in a bigger body. One of these guys where you go, okay, put him 1-on-1, chuck him down at the park, look at these scoring numbers. That's great and all, but can we win a game with you out there? He's had little flashes and he had an injury this season, but he is so incredibly low feel that he would put up numbers on certain teams without any question. Would it mean that he is good or the team is good? I don't know about that, but I can't let him slide further than that. Now, it is easy. It's very easy for you to say, I would comfortably take Kuminga over Herb Jones. I would take him over Reaves, Jalen Green, Grimes, Wiggins. I actually understand that. It is a enticing body package, Giddey, where he had the size, the strength, the scoring outbursts, but there are so many negatives. I think with Kuminga, we're 4 years in here, and I haven't really seen that being solved from him realistically at any stage yet. We'll see where it goes, but not happy with it. We've got, that's 15 done. We'll go through the final 15 of this mock draft, the rest of the first round, knock these out relatively quickly here. At number 16, this was the pick that Oklahoma City traded to Houston, and the Rockets traded up to get Alperen Şengün, which obviously is a clear W. This is where I'm going to put Cam Thomas. And again, I know that the bucket-getting legends, the pure hoopers that might be watching this will say having Kuminga 15 and 16 is ridiculous. All right, that's cool. That's just... Cam Thomas is one of the players that I hate watching. I just hate watching him play. He was a late first-round pick, so he's actually jumped up the board here. The ability to get a bucket is important, but when it's at the sacrifice of everything else, it is not that important. So having Thomas here is obviously where I've got him. I don't believe he should be higher. I understand that many of you would argue that, but having Cam Thomas at 16 is, I believe it's the right spot. At 17, in the real draft, it was the Pelicans picking Ken Murphy. I'm going to go with Santi Aldama, who, again, is he a high upside player? Do I love Santi Aldama? Not really. But Aldama is a guy that can start in a pinch. He can fill in at multiple positions. He's incredibly streaky, but he's at least shown value to be a consistent NBA rotation player. So that is worth it at 17. At number 18 is where I'm going to pick Moses Moody, and he hasn't shown that he's a consistent NBA rotation player over the course of his career. I thought he started to show it this season, but still didn't do enough to push him high. Now, I could come back in 2 years' time and Moody could easily be at number 11 or number 12 on this list. I could see that. I think that his developmental situation, he has not been given as large of a leash as Kuminga has, and I also understand that Kuminga hasn't been given as large of a leash as you would want him to have anyway. But Moody, I think in this spot, I still buy a little bit of the talent, but I'm not fully in. This was the pick where the Thunder selected Trey Mann, who, of course, was off to a pretty good start before the back injury rooted his season. At pick number 19, the Charlotte Hornets, after going crazy with pick number 11 and taking James Bouknight, they decided to double down on two of the worst first-round draft picks you'll ever see, two of the worst top 20 picks going around, and they selected Kai Jones, who was cut from the team because he was having mental health issues, which, shame on you, Charlotte. Went to the Clippers and barely played, and then had some really good moments for Dallas at the end of the season. I'm not taking Kai Jones here. This is where I'm taking Davion Mitchell. And honestly, if Davion Mitchell didn't get traded to Miami and show that stuff at the end of the season, I don't know that Davion would have snuck his way into the first round. But we get to a stage here where there's pretty big drop-off in the players here, and Mitchell showed enough in big minutes, in a bench role in Miami, to suggest that he's at least going to have, for the next couple of years, a sixth-man role at worst, maybe seventh-man role at worst. Defense still not at the level that you wanted it to be. Very good defender, but again, when a player comes in with that reputation, I want you to be the best defensive point guard in the NBA, especially when the shooting and the passing doesn't really live up to the level that's needed. Like, he's not, to me, Davion Mitchell, as good of a defender as Jalen Suggs. And when your offense is way worse, you need to bring that at that level. Good defender, but not as good as you might think he is. So I've got Mitchell at 19 there. And then the 20th pick was Jalen Johnson, absolute thievery by the Hawks. I'm going to take Sam Hauser, an undrafted player. Now, does Hauser benefit from being on a powerhouse Celtics team? Yes. Does Hauser also should get praise for being on a powerhouse Celtics team and being a key part of the rotation on a powerhouse Celtics team? Also yes. Because if he wasn't good enough and that team was that good, he wouldn't play. So, like, we look at him and go, well, we think Hauser's better because of all the other good guys around him. Sure, but if he was not good, he just wouldn't play. He wouldn't be on the court. He wouldn't be out there getting that benefit of the doubt. and his shooting ability. He's a better defender than you think he is. We heard the Celtics talk about that all season. So I'm going to take Hauser at number 20 in this 2021 NBA redraft. 10 picks to go. At pick number 21, I'm going to go with Ayo Dosunmu. Now, I think you could argue that Dosunmu could go at number 20. I think you could argue he'd go ahead of Davion, Santi, Moses Moody. You could argue that Dosunmu could go ahead of Cam Thomas, honestly. I'm not going to make that argument, clearly, because I put him at number 21. Dosunmu is a rotation-level player that if you have to start him, you feel good that he's going to not screw up, but you're always going to be looking to make sure that other guy gets back. Keon Johnson was the pick here by the Clippers, who showed a little bit of stuff for Brooklyn this season, but clearly we're not that interested in him. At number 22, it was Isaiah Jackson for the Pacers, torn Achilles early on this season. Finally was going to have an opportunity to be the backup center and show some stuff, and didn't happen. Number 22, I am going to select Juice McBride, a second-round pick of the New York Knicks. I think McBride has the ability to be like a Dosunmu, a guy that can start, but he's a really strong bench piece who can defend and has some shooting and passing ability. At number 23, another undrafted guy, Jose Alvarado, who's obviously, well, maybe it's not obvious to you guys, but he's older than a lot of these prospects. He's already turned 27, same with Sam Hauser. David Mitchell's also 27, but Alvarado, again, a rotation guard who's a pretty strong defender, who's up and down with his shooting and can fill in at times, but your best spot for him is 7th or 8th man. And the real pick at this spot was a guy that I thought had some really interesting translations coming out of Spain, and that's Usman Garuba, who played like 2 years in Houston, didn't really get much of a chance, went to Golden State on a two-way, and now he's back in Europe. And I was wrong on that one very clearly. At number 24, the Rockets had back-to-back picks in this draft, and they went with Josh Christopher, who, again, was a bit of a bucket getter who has shown absolutely nothing. He currently is in Miami on a two-way, and had some okay moments in the G League, but it's not looking like it's going to work out for him. At 24, I will go back to Isaiah Jackson here. Yeah, we didn't get to see him play, but there's still enough flashes for me that I'd be investing a first-round pick in Isaiah. And then I'm going to go back-to-back at center. At number 25 in real life, the Knicks picked Quentin Grimes here. We already spoke about him. So I'm going to go with Day'Ron Sharpe, a rebounding beast who showed an ability to get more of his shots off, to maybe stretch out a little bit. I think he's one of those really solid backup centers who, if you needed him to start in a pinch, it could work out. And that's, at pick number 25, we're okay with that. The final 5 picks of this first round, I'm going to take another undrafted guy at number 26. At number 26 in real life, it was the big stiffy, the 5-minute man, Bones Highland. Remember him? Remember Bones Highland? Who does he play for at the moment? The answer is nobody. He was traded from the Nuggets in an all-time bonehead move from him, requesting a trade to the Clippers, didn't play there. The Clippers ended up trading him to the Hawks. The Hawks cut him. Doesn't play anywhere. I thought Highland actually did have pretty good upside. He's off-court or maybe in locker room stuff has obviously contributed. His poor defense and the shooting hasn't been where it needs to be. Hasn't worked. So 26, I'm going with Justin Champagnie. Undrafted player, can defend, can shoot, can rebound. Just one of those guys. You want this guy, a 6'7" wing who can shoot and defend. Like, that's useful. Is he a star? No, but I like him now. The real pick at 27 was Cam Thomas. Talked about him earlier. This is where I'm going to pick Corey Kispert, who is a bench shooter who's not as good of a shooter as you want him to be. He's not as good of a shooter as Sam Hauser to me, so that's why I'm putting Kispert here. At number 28, it was the package Jaden Springer, who has bounced around and ended up in Utah this season. Has not worked out for him at all, so I'm going to take Trey Mann, who showed some flashes at the end of year 3, but we didn't get to see much this season. At number 29 in the draft, it was Day'Ron Sharpe. In this one, I'm going to take a second-round player who got an opportunity this season, and that is Brandon Boston Jr. Injuries did limit him, but I think Boston showed enough to be a rotation guard. Not sure he's got starter upside at all, but that's okay in this position. And then the last pick of the first round was Santi Aldama, and the last pick for Memphis in my first-round redraft of 2021, I'm going to take the guy that was picked by Memphis back at number 10, Zaire Williams. He showed something this season for Brooklyn after the Grizzlies dumped him. He showed enough to be, okay, I guess with your size, you can be a rotation forward who sort of shoots and sort of defends, but obviously not worth the 10th pick. But at pick number 30, I get it. I get it. You can get there. Let's just go and recap now. That first round of the 2021 NBA draft. At 1, Cunningham. 2, Mobley. 3, Şengün. 4, Barnes. 5, Wagner. At number 6, I went with Jalen Johnson. 7, Jalen Suggs. 8, Trey Murphy. 9, Josh Giddey. 10, Austin Reaves. At 11, it was Herb Jones. Number 12, Jalen Green. 13, Quentin Grimes. 14, Aaron Wiggins. And 15, Jonathan the Bucket Kuminga. At number 16, Cam Thomas. 17, Aldama. 18, Moses Moody. 19, Davion Mitchell. 20, Sam Hauser. At number 21, Ayo Dosunmu. 22, Juice McBride. 23, Jose Alvarado. 24, Isaiah Jackson. 25, Day'Ron Sharpe. 26, Justin Champagny. 27, Corey Kispert. 28, Trey Mann. 29, BJ Boston. And number 30, Zaire Williams. I hope that I haven't missed anybody in this class. I think I've gotten everybody, but sometimes some undrafted guys can slip through the cracks. Some of the guys that didn't get picked that I considered: Keon Johnson, Trendon Watford, Jared Butler, Delano Banton, Kai Jones, Charlie Bassie, who else? Kessler Edwards, Sandro Mamakhelishvili. I don't really think there's going to be anyone else here. Didn't want to draft Chris Duarte, out of the league legend. And that's where we're at with that. So, let me know your thoughts on the redraft. Let me know your thoughts on whatever you want. Just drop it in the comments below. Oceans, that's what we're talking about. Put that down below too, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.